Hello, today we're going to work on an easy Leetcode problem. This one is number 121, best time to buy and sell stock. If you're looking to follow along, you will want to go to leetcode.com. That's leetcode.com. Today I'm going to be using Python 3, so after going to the problem, which if you want to get to the problem, you may have to create an account or log in if you already have an account. I selected Python 3 from the drop-down, and it pre-populated this text area with a class solution and the function. So we're just going to implement the function and return the answer. We're given a list of integers with the name prices. So these indicate the stock prices on the various days, the ith day. So you can see here under example 1, it gives us this input, and the expected output is 5. And the explanation tells us that optimally we should buy on day 2 when price is 1, and sell on day 5 when price is 6, to give us a profit of 5. And it's telling us that we cannot do 7 minus 1 equals 6 because we would be selling before we bought the stock, which we're not allowed to do. Example 2 also shows the case where it does not make sense to buy or sell any stock, and in that case we just give output 0 because the maximum profit is $0. So I'm going to start out with doing the initial thing that might come to your mind, which is I'm going to start looping through the list. So I'm going to just get an index into prices. So the I index is going to be used to get the buy price. And then I'm going to do another loop within it. So basically, after we buy the stock at some point in the array, so with example 1, when we buy when the price is 1, then the possible prices that we could sell at all come later on in the array. So 5, 3, 6, 4, 7's not an option. So I'm going to start the J index at I plus 1, and again we're going to end at the end of the array. Now, this may be a possible solution to solve it, but we're dealing with nested loops. So there may be a better way to solve this. So I'm going to abandon this approach at this point and start over. Now, what if there was a way where we could where we could do this with only looping through the array once? Well, how would we do that? Well, what if we could iterate through the array and have the current iteration be the index where we sell at? Well, in that case, we would need to know where did we buy? Like at what point before the sell? So in this case, like for example, it's 6. well, did we buy at 1, 5, 3? So the thing you should notice is that we're essentially trying to minimize the price we buy at. So if, for example, if the cell is fixed at 6, the question is, what's the minimum number that comes in the array prior to 6? And in that case, it's 1. Now, we could, at each element of the array, loop through all the elements in the array that come before that index, but then we're just having the same problem with inefficiency that we had to start out with my first approach. So it's really no better. But what we could do is we could keep track as we go through the array. What is the minimum buy price? So for example, we start out with the cell at 7. Well, there's nothing that comes before 7, so we couldn't have bought stock and be able to sell it at 7. So we're just going to say 7 is the new minimum buy price, and we're going to move on without doing any sell. Then we get to 1. Well, 1 is less than the minimum buy price, so it makes no sense to sell at 1. So while we're not going to buy at 7 and sell at 1, we are going to make 1 the new minimum buy price. Then we're going to move on to selling at 5. Well, 5 is more than 1, so we could sell at 5, and because 1 is the minimum buy price up to this point, our profit would be $4. So at this point, the answer that we would return is 4, but we still have more of the array to go through. So since 5 is more than 1, 1 still remains the minimum buy price. And we're going to move on to selling at 3. So 3 minus 1, profit is 2. Now that's not more than the profit of 4 that we already have. So we're not going to update the return value, nor are we going to update the minimum buy price, because 3 is more than 1. So we're just going to move on to 6. Now 6 minus 1, that's 5. That becomes our new answer. And as we continue with the last value in the array, it's not going to be more profit. So ultimately, we're going to end up returning the value we expect, 5. And what did we do? We did a single iteration through the array with no subloops. So I'm going to start out trying to do that, implement that in code here. So we're going to need a minimum buy price. So let's think about it for a moment. What should the initial value be? I'm gonna make it 0. We're going to see if that works out or not. So what else do we need? We need to track the minimum buy price. We need to track max profit, which we're going to return 0 if there's no possible buy sells. So I'm going to set it as 0 initially, just so that we return the correct value in that case. So at the end, we're going to return max profit. And now we're going to need to have a loop, which actually calculates the max profit if it's anything other than 0. So I'm going to use I in range length of prices. So now, if you're not familiar with Python and how range works, it's basically an implicit zero. So if you just leave out the start value, it's implicitly zero, so you just specify the end condition. So prices I is going to be the current price, which is going to be our sell price, just to make the code a little easier to read. So what we want to do is sell price minus min by price. But the thing is, initially we do not own any stock. So this would give us 7, when really at this point it's an indeterminate value because it's not possible to sell at this point. So I think the best thing to do here would be to handle the 0 index as a special case. So I'm going to start at 1 with the loop, and min by price is just going to be prices 0. So then here I'm going to have to do if the sell price is less than or equal to min by price, we're going to continue, but being that the sell price was less than or equal to min by price, we're first going to record the sell price as being the new minimum purchase price before continuing. And then I'm continuing with the loop, so don't technically need an else, but I'm going to put else. Otherwise, we're going to calculate the profit, and max profit is going to be whichever is bigger, either the current max profit or the current profit calculation. So let me think a moment. In this case, the else case, the sell price was greater than the min buy price, so we don't have to check to see if we need to change what the min buy price is, because it's definitely smaller than the sell price. And max profit starts at 0, so if we never reach the else case ever, it's going to stay at 0 and we're going to return 0 as we expect. One problem here is that this does not handle the case where prices is an empty list. So before, when I just had the loop and I did not have a special case to handle index 0, it was range 0 to the length of the list, which if the length was 0, it would be 0 to 0 and the loop just would never execute. So that was okay. But here, if we're doing price is 0 and the length is 0, well, there's no initial element in the list, it's just empty. So it's going to throw an exception. Um, hmm. So I could just do if price is 0, then return 0. Um, so that's one way to handle it. Yeah, I would say that's probably the easiest way to handle it. I'm trying to think if there's any other edge cases I'm missing. I think at this point I'll just click on run code to have it run against the test cases, or the one test case, it looks like. You could also supply your own custom test cases somehow. Down here, how to create a test case. I know. Yeah, they've changed the interface since I last used this, but there's some way you can supply your own custom test cases. At this point, I think I'm just going to try submitting it. Yeah, so you can see I've done this in the past, and I've submitted a Python 2 test case and a C++ test case in the past. Now I did it in Python 3. It was accepted, so it passed all the test cases. Runtimes 44 milliseconds, which is faster than about close to 90% of the Python 3 submissions for this problem. You also, I think normally you don't have access to the solution, but once you do complete the problem, you unlock the solution and you can look at the discussion about the problem. So that was my solution, my Python 3 solution to the best time to buy and sell stock problem on Leetcode. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys subscribe, and hopefully I'll make more videos like this of other Leetcode problems, and you guys will find it helpful and you'll watch them as well.